178 number is. That's your bike going through your light off. Goldsmith, who helps us and does a great work around the club, leading it up with a little industrial machine used around factories and all sorts of things for on production line work. Peter Vaughan running around on that. A little motor running that, the Lance Bulldog. Legendary tractor in the bush, particularly up in the Mallee. They were a fairly large capacity, single cylinder diesel engine. The only problem with these old girls under load going uphill, they would start backwards. That can be a little interesting from time to time. The David Brown tractor going by there, row crop tractor, very, very rare out here. As you can see, very gangly. And what I mean by row crop, it would work over the top of vegetable gardens and flower beds and everything and not damage the crop. That's what it was designed for. The little Howard tractor going past, being used as a bus, and it's a red light district, so I advise everybody to stay right away from there. And going past, Neil Wright, tireless worker here at Lake Goldsmith, news letter editor, program editor come whatever, along with our secretary as well, with his little Gibson tractor, and a tireless worker, tree planter. Goodness gracious, Neil, you've got many titles. The Hart Par, the Australian special coming past. Very, very early Hart Par, 20s model. Going by now, Hart Pars, a lot. These were virtually the first tractors, one of the first tractors, not the first, but one of the first tractors around to perform from taking over from the horse-drawn teams to the mechanical era. And in fact, there is a great video around called Heritage Australia, and I advise you, if you get that, you'll see the Hart Par against the horse-drawn team. The Fordson, the petrol Caro Fordson, E27N, another tractor, 3-point linkage model, has the hydraulics on it. A lot of these tractors came out with only a drawbar, but this one here has the 3-point linkage, and the control for that sits right between the driver's legs, pardon the pun, and they were used in all sorts of agriculture, horticulture as well. The Field Marshal, a great piece of British engineering here. You just have to start it with a shotgun cartridge. And the Field Marshal diesel going by. As you can see with the Field Marshal, if he stops it there, and sitting there all day driving this tractor, when you went home and you tried to eat the peas off your bloody plate, you couldn't get the buggers because you were sitting there doing this. Anyway, the Field Marshal, quite popular around the traps, right across the country, in their pockets. They were strong where the dealerships were strong, but as I've always maintained, a bit of British engineering, we'll leave it at that. The Farmall, again, a row crop tractor. These tractors were designed for clearance under here. They had toolbar arrangements and everything that fitted underneath them. They were adapted to a multitude of uses. Again, in Australia, we didn't have a purpose-built tractor for here. We had to improvise with what we were given. We were a very low populated country, and we had to just improvise with what we've got. The mighty gel bar. And the gel bar tractor scoop behind it, four-cylinder petrol, fairly large capacity, magneto drive, driving the spark plug, but the Caterpillar range of tractors is very, very big. And the roller going past behind, Ronnie Spooner on the committee, a little footpath roller or cricket pitch roller going along behind that. The Case tractor, owned by Kevin Gillingham of Raglan, going by now. A tractor again, an American tractor. Case, of course, builds steam engines and all sorts of things. But the Case tractor owned by Kevin Gillingham, 1950 model, 3-cylinder, Deutz diesel tractor. Again, very strong in belt. The International TD9 crawler going by. Again, a multitude of uses in agriculture and all sorts of earth moving. The little TD9, a very versatile dozer, used a lot in agriculture as well. They used to put a 3-point linkage system on them. And we've got the Howard Mac coming by. Righto, we'll get the steam boys. The Grey Ferguson coming in right now. 16 and 18 horsepower. Is an absolute legend in the agricultural and horticultural world. Right across the world, really. Harry Ferguson designed a complete system called the Ferguson system, and they have a multitude of things, from moldboard ploughs to another moldboard, two-bar moldboard plough, rear-end fork, doing a multitude of work. And as you can see, all going by. Was the next step up in the Grey Fergie range, and they went up to the 35. That tractor there was owned by Malcolm Fraser, and yes, life wasn't meant to be easy. He owned the Ferguson. What can I say? And the Grey Fergie's going by. Again, a Ferguson winch system on the back there, designed by Harry Ferguson to go on his tractors. And we've got two winches here. We've got Mrs. Jones there with a winch on as well. The scoop coming up next, the Ferguson rear end scoop, all designed and specifically designed to go on these tractors as they're rolling on by. The Case, 40 cut K going past up there, sorry. And again, a tractor built in Western Australia, and the Chamberlain Tractor Company. Still a lot of them in use, the Super 90s, the Super 70s. They were very, very popular. Here we have another 35 with a transporter on the back of it. We'll call it a transporter. Rob will keep it happy. Righto, another Grey Fergie coming in now. Carry-all on the back. Genuine Ferguson item again. Field Marshal coming up. And we'll start getting into our steam, ladies and gentlemen, nowadays. Basie Lady, road-going engine designed specifically for heavy haulage. Notice that it has springs in the front of it there, which, unlike the other traction engines, they don't have that. Well, very few do. A fairly big engine, get along at a fairly good road speed, and would pull very big weights off rail heads and out of ports and everywhere. Pulling John Smythe's cable wagon behind it. As you can see, the big cable drum on the back, and this belongs to the Melbourne City Council, and they had their own electrical department, and was there for many, many years. The Gelbart tractor going by as well. So, Basie Lady, owned by the Miles family of New Zealand, bought this engine back in 1994 and have restored it up to its former glory from really a pile of junk, coming twice a year from New Zealand for 2 weeks, and have restored that engine back to what it is today. The next steam we've got coming up is the Clayton Shovel steam wagon. And in fact, we have the Davison family with us this weekend, who operated this machine for many, many years, and in fact we're operating it yesterday. And another Miles on there, driving that from New Zealand. And as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, the steam wagon was really the predecessor to Trade Truck. Again, used off the railheads and wharfs area, and these would cart goods inwards, inland, usually about a maximum range of about 20 miles, and they would cart it to factories and all sorts of things. The Clayton and Shuttleworth steam wagon, built in Lincoln, England, a very rare piece of, a very rare item, very, very sought after these days. Coming through next, we have the John Fowler 6-horse, single-cylinder traction engine, used for a great multitude of purposes, and that's the Black 6-horse, used for, you name it, it was used for shaft cutting, thrashing, pumping, doing drawbar work around the farm, a multitude of things, pulling road rollers, the whole box and dice. Ladies and gentlemen, you're looking at something coming along next, very, very unique. You're looking at how a thrashing team would travel down the road between property to property and district to district. And a typical engine that drove a thrasher was the Fowler 8-horse compound. And that is an 8-horse compound owned by our secretary and tireless worker, Mr. John Morris. And the engine is known as Victorious and has been a part of the lake as long as I can remember. Behind it is a Ransom, Sims and Jeffries thrasher, and being piloted there, I should say, by Neville Scobie and young Daniel, John's nephew. And behind it we have a Ransom, Sims and Jeffries thrasher, and that is owned by Graham Milton and myself, and came out of the Warrnambool area, shipped over from England, all these things were, on boats, brought in from England, worked around the Warrnambool Dunkeld area. The fellow that originally owned it around Dunkeld actually lost the leg in this machine. They have a big drum that spins up the top that you feed the hay into. He overbalanced, fell into it, and ended up losing his leg. And then it went to Hamilton's and Tattyoon, and Graham and myself got it from there. The elevator wagon that carts the elevators, which is on the back of the thrasher, which the elevators are up on the thrasher that we've got operational at the moment. Then we had the living van, the engine driver and the mousey, the man in charge of the whole crew. They got the living van and the rest of you slept wherever you could. Behind that, of course, when you're making steam, you need water and wood. Our extra reserve of water, the mighty Berkey water cart, ladies and gentlemen, built in Shepparton, about 1920 built that one. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's what you would have seen round the turn of the century in the late 1800s, going round to take the strip the crops. In other words, that is a yesteryear header. And in fact, in the headers, still to this day, the working principles inside a header are exactly the same as that machine that's nearly 100-year-old. Coming by next is most probably the best example of a Fowler engine anywhere in the country. This engine was most probably the last engine brought in, well, is the last engine brought into this country. It sat around for many, 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 many years. And in Welsh and Parents was the last Fowler sold. It has never really done any hard contracting work. And it is owned by the Smith family out of Rockland, who are great supporters here. If people were here at the 75th, you would remember the Smiths who had their sawmilling plant down the other end. The Smiths supply our oaten hay that we thrash up the top end and have been coming here for many, many years and are great supporters here at Lake Goldsmith. Next we have a magnificent piece, and it is brought here by the Navy, HMAS Cerberus, the 1923 Bowden steam wagon. Again, along the same lines as the Clayton Shuttleworth, a trade truck. And the Navy would have used it for transporting goods onto port, off ships, onto ships, round the general stores area, all sorts of things. Notice the big sprocket in the rear end, ladies and gentlemen, and chain driven from the engine down the front. 12 mile an hour was what she gets along at. And I must thank the commanding officers and all the people involved with the Navy Steam Club for coming to Lake Goldsmith. They are great people. They come up here, and that is one of the finest examples of a steam wagon you'll see anywhere in the world, ladies and gentlemen. Next coming through, the 8-horse single-cylinder John Fowler, owned by Bill Smith, who is a Lake Goldsmith resident here. Well, when I say a resident, has a shed here. And the yellow engine, John Fowler 8-horse, again, very common engine on bigger properties for doing general farming, saw work, bench work, shaft cutting, thrashing, pumping, you name it, they did it. And the 8-horse single, a little bit cheaper in price than the 8-horse compound. Next coming through is Tiny, a little traction engine that in former life was really a roller. It actually was a roller, this little engine, had the single piece along the front, Haveling quarter, and exactly the same virtually as what's behind. Tiny, before it was converted to a traction engine, looked like this. And it was a road roller. This engine is owned by John Franks here at Beaufort and a part of Lake Goldsmith, and being piloted by John Franks and Norm Jenkins on the steering wheel. And the little Haveling roller, again used obviously for road making, owned by Shires, you name it, road contractors, etc., road rollers, doing footpath work or broader road. Did do some rock crushing, they used to drive rock crushers occasionally as well. And we have quite a few of the rollers. Coming through next is Eric Wilson. And young Eric, a very keen young man on his team, and he's got an Abilene Quarter roller as well. This roller is housed here at Lake Goldsmith. Eric comes from Adelaide and comes over every steam rally and every opportunity he gets to come over and have a play with the steam engines. And young Eric on his roller, the Abilene Quarter roller, number 11389. The next one through is the Roby roller, owned by the Shire of Creswick and sat in a park. And being driven here today by Robert and Kate Milton, and keen young people again on the scene. The Roby roller was worked at the Shire of Creswick, drove a rock crusher, did all the general road works for the Shire of Creswick, then ended up in a park. It sat in the park for many, many years until a man by the name of Jack Ross and the Scobie family got hold of it and got it out of the park and restored it to what we see today, ladies and gentlemen. And it's magnificent to see it going, and the Scobie family are the custodians. As you can see, the big burrel, Vasey Lady, sat derelict down at the railway yard in Vasey, and then was bought by TK Brown, and it sat really as a pile of scrap and only about 40% complete. As I said earlier on, the Miles family purchased it from New Zealand and has been travelling across here twice a year and have rebuilt this engine into exactly what you see today. So Vasey Lady going past, and we've had a change of driver. We've got Flippin up there. Flippin, you're not supposed to be up there. You're supposed to be back here. The house, he says, we're on. Now, you just listen to this machine, ladies and gentlemen. She'll start humming in a moment. The heart of the machine is the drum. And it gets that hypnotic sound about it. It's that lovely little hum. judging the length of the bale. Bang, down goes the water, he empties it in place, the next lot of hay will be packed against it. Young as I said, ladies and gentlemen, the thrashing team of this tractor turn coming onto a property would have between 20 and 30 men running it. And of course, men worked in those days for very little and more cheap. And they worked from sun up till sundown, 7 days a week. And they travelled here, there and everywhere. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. The genuine thrashing set working. And very rare, you don't see it in too many places now. And it's certainly one of our main features here at Lake Goldsmith that we're very, very proud of. And look, we hope to be doing it for generations to come. I hope my children and their children can get on this one day.